What's up, guys? Today I'm going to be talking to you about the infamous staph infection, okay? A lot of you guys in the wrestling, Jiu-Jitsu, MMA community are extremely familiar with the staph infection, all right? Basically, this video will be talking about my experience with staph, some of the things that I've learned from my teammates' experience with staph, and basically I'll be telling you and showing you how to prevent, treat it, and ultimately make sure that you don't get staph. It's not a good experience. You got to take time off, and the infection itself can actually be pretty lethal. It's not like ringworm where it's just, a fungus. This is actually a bacterial infection that can go in your bloodstream and into your brain and can actually kill you. And in some cases, limbs might have to be amputated based on the infection. So nonetheless, there are ways you can combat it yourself, which is why I'm making this video, to make sure that 1, you don't get it, 2, if you do get it, you know what to do, and 3, setting you and your teammates up for success to make sure that it stays off the mats. All right, with that said, let's get right into it. Okay, so I am not a health professional, so take my advice with a grain of salt. And also, I'm basically just going to be giving you some knowledge that I have accrued over time by also just researching this video and basically my personal experience. So basically, staph itself, also known as Staphylococcus, it is basically a germ, and it's actually a harmless germ that's common in 1 and 3 people. So basically, this kind of germ is located on the skin and even in the nose, which I did not know, and pretty much can only be harmful if it gets into an open cut or a wound, okay? So where I got my staph was from an ingrown hair, and ingrown hairs can be on the forearms, the knees, the legs, the triceps, anywhere where you obviously are growing hair, and ingrown hair seems to be common in those areas. So basically, when I got staph, there was an ingrown hair on my arm, and you might be able to see the scar from where I had staph, which is right there. And basically, there's an ingrown hair, and I thought nothing of it, and which I did the number one thing that I'm going to tell you to never do, which is to try to pop an ingrown hair or any type of pimple that's on your skin. Because when I did that, that is what basically opened up and begun the downhill spiral of the staph infection. Okay, so moving forward, anytime that I get a pimple, I leave it alone, I clean it, I make sure it stays clean. After every training session, I clean it. Okay, so that's one thing you're gonna hear me say, is that if you have a pimple, an ingrown hair, or anything that's bothering you, leave it alone, don't touch it, okay? Let it run its course, because when you squeeze and press it, it brings all the attention to it, and then bacteria gets into it. Even worse, if it does pop, and then you go out and train, or maybe you just train and then you pop it, all that bacteria and staph germ will run into that wound, okay? Same thing goes for cuts. Make sure you keep them clean. That's how the staph infection gets started, and that's how it gets worse. So keep that in mind, that staph itself is not uncommon. It's everywhere. It's in probably almost every surface of your gym, shower, wherever. But it really only gets bad if it gets into an open wound and if it's left uncleaned, okay? So that's one thing to keep in mind as I begin this conversation about staph. So like I mentioned about my experience with staph, I had kind of like an ingrown hair here, and like I said, I thought nothing of it, so I just kind of like tried to pop it, and when I tried to pop it, nothing happened. It just like hurt. But the thing is that the ingrown hair was like still there and kind of making itself known and making it look like it could still be popped. And because it looked like it and nothing was coming out, it made you kind of want to continue that pushing and popping, which was the worst decision that I made. And I bet that if I left it alone, it would have gone away on its own. But because I decided to try to pop it, that made it worse. And I'll actually show you some pictures of the stages that it went through from when I decided to pop it to the actual full course of its staph lifetime. And basically what happened was it got pretty big, and it got sensitive to touch within the next 24 to 48 hours. And what I noticed was that I could touch it from 2 to 3 inches away and still feel it. And that was suspicious, so immediately on my radar, I was like, something's wrong. And the thing was I pretty much didn't take any time off, because that same weekend I competed in a tournament and obviously neglected that, which probably made it multitudes worse, because of the fact that the mats at tournaments don't get cleaned for 12 hours, 13 hours, and I competed later on in the evening. which means that there were like probably 100 matches on that mat before I stepped on the mat. So obviously the mats weren't as clean as they should be, and I went to go compete with the staph on my arm. And obviously you can tell that that probably didn't help the situation looking at the pictures that I have. After the competition, it basically got worse, and to a point where I went to a doctor to get it cleaned, drained, and then basically prescribed antibiotics. Basically what had happened was it had swelled so much that the forearm swelling went all the way up to my wrist right here. It didn't go any further, but it got to my wrist. So all this entire forearm was like double the size of this forearm, and it basically looked like I had a Popeye forearm. And like I said, I'll show you the pictures in the video. If you can see them, you can pause it, check it out, or you can actually just skip because it looks pretty bad. Just FYI, and just to warn you guys. So basically I had got it drained, and when they got it drained, he cut it open and just squeezed all the pus out. Basically what I had was an abscess or a boil, and that's pretty common when you get staph infection. And yeah, the arm was pretty sensitive afterwards, so I had to take like a week off of training, and I think I was back on the mats about a week and a half later. So yeah, it was not a good experience, and obviously easily avoidable if I went all the way back to the beginning. Just don't pop your pimple or ingrown hair or anything like that, and keep your cuts clean. So where people get staph the most would be on their elbows and on their knees. And obviously you can probably get it anywhere else. Some people get it on their thighs, the back of their arms, their back, obviously because your back is on the mat. But pretty much staph, the most highly concentrated areas of where staph lives would probably be on the mats, because everyone gets on the mats, right? So everyone's pretty much bringing their own bacteria and germs, and it's all residing on the mat. It can also reside in like a shared shower or any area like this, like a locker room or something like that, or a towel, or even some sanitary products. Okay, so keep that in mind where staph could be living in your own gym. So that's kind of the physical external location of where, like the most concentrated area of staph. But there are some ways that staph can affect you based on your own lifestyle and your own habits. One of them is stress, right? So stress obviously increases cortisol in the body, and the more cortisol you have, that impacts your immune system. So if you have a weak immune system and you make things worse by exposing an open wound or a cut or a pimple to staph or to the mats where the most concentrated area of staph is, well, you have a higher chance of getting a staph infection, right? Because your immune system's weak and you don't have the defenses necessary to combat the infection. Especially during like competition weeks, when kind of everybody in the gym is preparing for a competition, naturally the stress levels get higher, the immune systems get weaker. It's pretty much more common to get a staph infection during that time. So it's important to kind of manage your stress, especially the more time you're spending on the mat, the less sleep you're getting. This is a time where the chance of getting staph infection is high. At the moment, I'm confident in my immune system, and I believe that, like I said earlier in the video, staph is everywhere. So I'm probably get staph on my body every time after training session. But because I have a strong immune system, I'm able to combat the staph infection, like immediately. So I personally think that if you have a strong immune system, you're sleeping right, you're getting enough sleep, your stress is low, you have a right diet, and you have a healthy lifestyle, then you're able to combat staph pretty much as soon as you get it, right? Whereas you take another person, and let's say that they eat bad, they eat a lot of like unhealthy foods, they don't get a lot of sleep, and they are not able to manage their stress properly. You take those two people, you put them on the mats, you let them train, blah, blah, blah. I bet you that 9 times out of 10, the person who has the weaker immune system will obviously get staph. Makes sense. Easy to do, easy not to do. So if you want to make sure that you don't get staph, prioritize your immune system. Take multivitamins, drink a lot of water, get a lot of sleep, manage your stress, and I guarantee you that the chances of you getting a staph infection will decrease tremendously, okay? So that's one thing that I've noticed. I've noticed that as soon as I prioritized my health in regard to kind of what I'm eating and like making sure that I'm sleeping a full like 7 to 8 hours, I haven't gotten staph, and it's been that way for a while. So as long as I prioritize managing my stress and having a healthy lifestyle, I think that yeah, I'll be good against the staph infection. Another reason why gyms and athletes get staph infection is that they might neglect the sanitization of their mats. Okay, preferably you want to clean the mats of the gym after every single training session. Okay, we definitely don't want to wait and let all of that staph bacteria kind of just sit on the mat waiting for the next group of people, especially if the next group of people, they might have a cut and then they put that cut on the mat and then that mat hasn't been cleaned, so now the staph goes straight to the cut and then it results into an infection. Okay, it doesn't cost much to just get like a brush or like a broom or mop and some cleaning supplies. That's extremely important, guys. There's tons of companies that can offer you the supplies that you need for your gym to make sure that you guys all stay healthy and can continue to use the mats safely. Okay, so now that you know pretty much how you get staph, that staph is basically just a common germ in the like in the human body. Like I said earlier, we need to know how to deal with it when we think we have it, when we do have it, and kind of in the peak of its intensity. So from my experience, there are some indicators of when you might have staph. A lot of times, like you get like a big bump on your body and you might think it's staph, but then it's not and it goes away the next day. But that's kind of the danger of it, is like you will get that again and you don't think it's staph, but in reality it is a staph infection, and then it just gets worse and you're still training, exposing your teammates to the same infection. All right, so basically you will know that it's different than your ordinary cut, pimple, or whatever, ingrown hair. Basically what it is like, if you touch it with the back of your hand, for example, and that area is warm, hot, it's a little suspicious, right? There's probably a lot of white blood cells there trying to work its ass off. That's why it's so hot. In addition to that, if you can touch it 2 to 3 inches away and you can still feel like a really sensitive pain, that's a little suspicious as well. You might have a staph infection, okay? In addition to that, if you're kind of walking around and maybe you graze it against like a wall or like a table or something and it hurts and it's like sensitive and it like pierces the pain sensors in your body, then that's probably another indication that you probably have a staph infection. Okay, so when in doubt, if you have these, definitely be respectful for your teammates and take the time off. Not only are you being respectful to your teammates, but you're also being respectful to yourself, right? You're able to minimize the amount of time that you're staying off the mats. Because if you have a suspicious pimple, cut, ingrown hair on your body and it hurts and you're like kind of not sure, but you still continue to train, and then let's say it gets really bad where now you have to take like 2 weeks off, 3 weeks off because it gets so bad you have to drain it, you have to take antibiotics, your cardio is bad. That is kind of a sacrifice that you have to make. Now you're off 2 weeks, where in the reality was, if you were to just take 2 to 3 days off in the beginning when you had that suspicious bump, suspicious cut on your body, and it healed in those 3 days, well, now you're only off 3 days, right? Maybe 4 instead of 2 weeks. So when you get these kind of suspicious cuts or bumps on your body, it might be the most beneficial and respectful reason for you and your teammates to just take the time off. I mean, you can still go to the gym and watch practice and learn with your teammates. You'll just be off of the mats. And in my opinion, that's probably the best idea. I've done that before, where I've stepped off the mats with a suspicious cut, mainly because I didn't want it to get worse, and I didn't miss out on much. I literally just missed like 2 training sessions, and I was back on day 4 with something that was just completely healed. It wasn't bad. However, it could have been bad. So keep that in mind, guys. If you have something suspicious, a suspicious cut, maybe it's warm to the touch, it's pretty sensitive, take time off the mats. If it gets worse, go to a doctor. Right? Definitely don't train. Definitely don't continue to stay on the mats and run the risk of passing on the infection to your teammates, putting it on the mats, maybe even giving it to your professor or coach. So you definitely don't want to do that, okay? Like I said, super easy way to make sure that you don't make anything worse than it already is to just leave it alone. Cuts, pimples, ingrown hairs. Guys, this is extremely important. Though in my mind, it's the only reason why I think I got it is because I decided to pop an ingrown hair. Worst decision ever, But I learned a lot from that because now I don't pop anything else at all, right? So I just make sure that if you have anything suspicious, leave it alone. One pro tip that I do if I come back from training and there's anything bothering me, sensitive, I just get a Q-tip, alcohol, and I just put alcohol on that cut like literally a couple of times an hour or a day. So I just make sure that it just stays clean. That's the biggest thing. Obviously, people say that, yeah, you're cleaning the good bacteria too, but I'm just making sure it's clean. And it's working for me ever since I started doing that. We've been keeping the infections on the low, okay? And obviously, to make sure that you don't get staph is to just shower as soon as you finish training, all right? So you can kind of predict, understand, equate that the longer you spend off the mat from a training session, the percentage that you get staph increases inch by inch, okay? So as soon as you finish training, you want to minimize the amount of time from when you're off the mats to the time you're in a shower. Quickly get to a shower as fast as possible. You probably have staph all over you. It's just the way it is. Staph is a common germ. But like I said in the beginning of the video, it's only bad if it gets into a cut, a pimple, a wound, ingrown hair, whatever. You literally have pores on your body, which means you have a bunch of holes on your skin that are just like awaiting anything that it gets given, right? So if it starts raining, all the holes are just going to absorb all the water. So if you finish training session and you have staph all over you, the pores are just welcoming all the staph. So you want to quickly get into a shower as fast as possible and rinse everything off. Preferably with soap and water. So hopefully you guys are familiar with that. Some people aren't. Big shocker. Also guys, laundry. You finish a no-gi training or even a gi training session and you ball up your stuff and you throw it into a corner. You're letting the staph marinate in your gi and in your rash guard, okay? Hang it out in the sun or immediately do your laundry, right? Sometimes for me, when I finish my training sessions, my laundry protocol is to hang it out literally in the sun. I'm staring at it right now. There's a rack full of rash guards just cooking in the sun, and the sun is a natural bacteria killer. So if you have like some pads or some sparring gear, hang it up in the sun and get that pre-cook before you throw it in the laundry. That helps too. If you just throw kind of sweaty clothes with a normal laundry wash with soap and water, a lot of times that soap doesn't get to clean out that sweat and bacteria. So one thing you can do, and one thing that I've learned, is that especially training in the gi or even your no-gi apparel, you can take all of your sweaty clothes, put it into a wash, and just do a rinse cycle with water and like vinegar or something like this, or baking soda. That way you can get all the sweat out first. And then once you do that, then you can put the soap in, and then that can help clean out anything else that's remaining and make sure that your fabrics are clean and sanitized. It's extremely important to navigate these sanitization hurdles in the MMA, Jiu-Jitsu, martial arts community, okay? It's a very prevalent condition, staph infections, and it can just kind of get you off the mat. But they are what they are, and it happens a lot. It's normal as long as you guys take care of your body. Make the right protocols so that way you can stay away from staph infections. So guys, that's pretty much the video. If I left anything out, feel free to let me know in the comments below. What was your worst staph story, guys? You saw what happened to me one time for me, and I'm gonna make sure it never happens again. Obviously not a good experience. And definitely could have easily been avoided. All right, so if you enjoyed this video, send this to somebody who you know doesn't shower or do their laundry. Guys, that's the person that's going to get you guys the staph, okay? Like I said, guys, no one likes dealing with staph, and if you have had staph before, you know what it's like, especially if you have taken antibiotics and it hits your cardiovascular system pretty hard. It's hard to train, you get tired, you get winded. Nobody likes that, guys. Do what's necessary. An ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure, okay? Do the right precautionary steps to make sure that you don't get staph or your teammates don't get staph. Guys, I hope you enjoyed this video. Like and subscribe so you can see more content like this, guys. I hope you enjoyed. See you in the next video.